Hello everybody, Gage here from Sharp, here to help you answer the age-old question, which gyuto size is appropriate for my needs? You will typically find the gyuto in the following sizes: 180 millimeters or 7 inches, 210 millimeters or 8.2 inches, 240 millimeters or 9.5 inches. And then this guy is not super common, but just to throw it in there, 300 millimeters, which is about 11.8 inches. So which gyuto size is right for you? Well, what we're gonna do is just chop up a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna use the different sizes of knives, and I'll just kind of ramble on and tell you sort of my thoughts and my personal preferences for doing certain tasks with different lengths of gyuto. So we'll start out with the 180 millimeter gyuto, obviously the shortest of the bunch that we're gonna test out here. As you can probably tell, the 180 is really great for smaller vegetables, more intricate tasks. Anytime your hand is closer to the tip of the knife, you're gonna have an easier time controlling that part of the blade. So the 180, obviously, being the shortest of the bunch, my hand is close to the tip of the knife, so I'll have a lot of control over that part of the blade. Brunoise shallot, garlic, and stuff like that is really easy with a smaller knife like this. But what you're trading for that ease of use on the smaller stuff is a little bit of blade geometry. So you'll notice, like, on a 180, the knife, like, starts to get thick pretty quick because there's not a lot of blade height here with these shorter knives. So you're gonna find, like, harder ingredients a little bit more challenging to cut. Now, this Kurokaze Gyuto is maybe not the greatest knife to show the difficulties of using a 180 millimeter Gyuto, because this thing is razor sharp. It's got really nice blade geometry on it, and it goes through like sweet potatoes super easy. But let's contrast that to like a 210 here and just see like, I mean, maybe hard to get across just over video, but this is, even easier to do with this 210 in comparison to the 180. And then if we go to the 240, like, that's just frickin' butter, man. I mean, all three of these knives are exceptional knives, so you really can't go wrong with any three of these, but it's definitely going to be easier to cut through a sweet potato with a longer knife because you'll just have, a slightly more favorable blade geometry. Of course, every knife is a little bit different, right? Not all knives are the same. Some 240s, like this guy, are nice and flat at one point and then sweep more up towards the tip, but you'll find 240 gyutos that are just like really sweepy and don't really have much of a flat spot at all. On the flip side of that, this 180 millimeter gyuto actually does have quite a bit of flat spot, which is not normal, I would say. A lot of 180 gyutos that I've used, and one of the reasons I don't like them a ton is that they are super sweepy, which means the like up and down chopping motion is not super enjoyable. So just something to keep in mind, like when you're shopping for knives, you really got to do your comparisons on sort of like a knife to knife basis, because a 180 might have characteristics more similar to that of a 210 millimeter gyuto or something like that. I personally find myself reaching for my 240 the majority of the time. At home, I have, if you've watched our recent video, I just picked up a bunka from Hamono-san. I have a Fujiwara Algami Super 240 millimeter gyuto. I have a Shiro Kamo super tall nakedi. And then I have a bunch of other knives that I keep in the drawer that I don't use a ton, but I more recently have been using my Hamono bunka like all the time, but before I got that knife, I was using primarily my 240 for pretty much everything. I don't know, like, I find the 240 is not as unwieldy as maybe other people might. I don't find it to be that long, and I find anything now that I use that's shorter feels like exceptionally short. So when I use a 180 or when I use my bunka, it does feel quite short. Another thing that I'll point out about maybe buying your first Japanese knife or buying your first like sort of nicer knife is that you're likely simultaneously learning how to use your knife more appropriately. So what a lot of people will do when they first start learning how to use a knife is hold the knife like way back here, right? Seems, intuitive that you would grab the handle by the knife by the handle. But this actually is not how you're supposed to grip a knife properly. You're supposed to use what's called a pinch grip, which is going to be sort of more up here. Allows you to, it means that you're kind of holding onto the blade and gives you more control over the blade. But what you'll also probably notice is that when I use this pinch grip, I'm losing like a good inch or so of usable edge on my knife. So when you're doing that on, say, a 180, your 7-inch knife quickly becomes more like a 5.5-inch blade. Your 210 quickly turns from 8 to about 7 inches, and your 240 quickly turns from 9.5 to, 8.5 or 8 inches. So I think you'll find when you start using your knife or like gripping your knife using the pinch grip, you'll find that the longer knives actually become much easier to work with, and you'll feel very comfortable using them, and you'll find anything shorter gets a little bit tough to work with because you don't have as much blade available to you. Generally speaking, I would say a 240 Gyuto is going to be a little bit more versatile in the profile that it offers you. So like we kind of already talked about, the longer knives are generally going to have like both a flat spot and sort of a sweeping tip. I know I kind of said that each knife is a little bit different, but speaking generally here, a 240 millimeter Gyuto is typically going to have like a really nice flat spot here and kind of sweep up towards the tip. So you can do both a rock chopping motion and a up and down chopping motion really easily with a 240. Whereas when you're getting into like the 210s and the 180s, there's, because there's less length there, it's a little bit more difficult to have both a flat spot and a sweeping sort of tip on it. So you'll notice with the Shiro Kamo, beautiful knife, one of my favorites in the shop, but not as much flat spot here, right? So if you are more of like an up and down chopper, you might be left wanting a little bit with this guy because it doesn't have much flat spot on it. Now, we haven't talked about the 300 at all, and the 300 conceivably should be the only knife that you need, right? Because the longer the knife, the more versatile it is. But even me, someone who's worked in a professional kitchen for 10 years and continues to do a lot of chopping, both at my job here and at home, cooking for my family, this guy is just a little like over the top, It's certainly fun to work with, but it's just crazy long. It's super, super long. Doing this carrot is not bad at all. But when we were shooting our other video on this same subject for our shorts, I was doing some garlic, and this guy was just like insane. Like I've never used a knife that felt heavy when I was like picking it up, but this one, when I was doing the garlic, like literally feels, it's like heavy. Like I was having trouble picking it up from the bottom. So like when I was doing this stuff, like I can feel the weight of the knife, which is not normal in my experience, at least. And while it's still like obviously possible to brunoise garlic with a ridiculously long knife, it's just like, it's not necessary.
But you look super cool.
I know I look super cool. I mean, I look super cool all the time, but especially when I'm using my 300 millimeter Gyuto. Yeah, and obviously you're going to pay a lot more for a 300 than you would something smaller. And I guess that's another good point to make, is like the longer the knife, generally the more expensive it is. So a 240, not always, but almost always is going to be more expensive than a 180 millimeter Gyuto. Likely going to be more expensive than a 210. Obviously, there's a lot of variance in pricing and stuff like that, but generally speaking, the longer knife, especially from the same series, of course, the longer knife is going to be more expensive than the shorter knife. So, long-winded, rambling video today, but just trying to sort of talk through like what goes through my mind when I'm chopping or when I'm picking a knife. And I guess the point of this video is to try to point out that like the longer the knife, the more versatile it's going to be. So if you can get yourself comfortable using something longer, that's generally what we recommend. The other point of this video is to not be afraid of longer knives because you'll quickly get used to them. And when you are used to them, you'll find it's, annoying to work with anything smaller because they just feel, too small, whatever, for lack of a better fun description. Now, of course, there's a time and a place for every length of knife, right? If you're trying to build a well-rounded kit, having a small knife, sort of petty knife size, is nice. Having a medium-sized knife like a bunka, nakiri, 180 gyuto is nice, and then having something longer like a 210 or a 240 gyuto is really nice. Just kind of helps cover all your bases. As comfortable as you might be with a really long knife, you will still find that there's tasks that having a shorter knife is really nice. With that being said, if you're grabbing a 6 to 7 inch knife all the time right now and you're really happy with what you're able to do with it, then there's no need to force yourself into using something longer. But if you're using that size of knife right now and you're always kind of thinking like, oh, I wish I had something a little bit longer, then obviously that's a good indication that maybe you should get something a little bit longer. I would just argue that if maybe this is your first knife and you're just looking for versatility, then having a longer knife is going to allow you to do more with it, of course. So yeah, I hope this video provided you some value. I know it was just kind of me talking at the camera, so I hope you guys liked it. If you did, leave a comment down below. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below, and until the next video, I hope you stay sharp.